Okay, welcome everybody to the first in a series of webinars that we will run weekly during the current pandemic. Our intention is to share some expert advice to help our members not only survive, but to thrive after this crisis. A recording will be taken of each webinar, which will be subsequently available to download on a dedicated page on the Chamber's website, killarney.ie. This page will also have some links to extra resources which we will continually update. Our speakers this morning are Leen from AIB and Tomás from the local enterprise office. They are going to lead us through some of the financial supports that are available to us. Please feel free to use the question box if you have anything you would like to ask, which we will cover off at the end of both presentations. Before I hand over to Diarmuid, I'd just like to thank Moira Murrell, the CEO from Kerry County Council, for allowing us to use the GoToWebinar software which belongs to Kerry County Council, which you're on this morning, which can take up to 100 participants. So thanks very much to Kerry County Council. So good morning, Diarmuid. Thank you for joining us from your sitting room, or it could be the bedroom, I'd say. But so thank you for accepting our invite and for joining us today. So over to you, Diarmuid. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Paul, and to you all for this excellent initiative from Killarney Chamber. Can I check? Are you able to hear me okay? Hopefully. Yeah. Okay, so delighted to be called this morning and to speak to you for 20 minutes or so on the financial situation that we're encountering. So I am going to speak to the SBCI and the financial supports that are out there. I'm speaking on behalf of the AIB, but I am speaking to general financial solutions that are available. So if you're not a customer of AIB, you're going to find much the same solutions available in your bank, Bank of Ireland or Ulster Bank or wherever it may be. So please, I hope it's relevant. I'm also going to, there are 3 slides effectively. One is the supports that are available within our bank. Secondly, the government assisted supports that are available. And then the third slide is just to touch on the cash flow management side of things. That's probably very relevant for you currently. I'm going to take you through the discussion, and there may be questions afterwards, and I'll be delighted to take them. Suffice to say, we've never been in this period before, any of us, and I'm in business banking a long time. So this is a very difficult circumstance, and I'm sure many of you are experiencing those feelings and those issues. It is a time of priority for AIB, for both our staff and you, our customers. So, as I said, the purpose is just to cover off the products that are available. So if I look to the first slide, hopefully you can see that. The biggest thing that's facing us at the moment, as you can well imagine, is customers are looking for payment break solutions. And the 3-month moratorium is the most common one that's been put upon us. It was agreed and discussed in negotiation by all the banks with the Minister a few weeks ago, and it's the circumstances to which you can avail of it, of course, is if your cash flow drops temporarily as a result of the COVID-19 and you believe you're unable to make your loan repayments, well, then you qualify. So you can make a request for up to 3 months. That payment break means that you won't pay any interest or capital on your loan during the period of the break. And then when the 3-month payment break expires, your monthly repayments over the term of your loan, the remaining term, will be increased to account for that, keeping it within its original term. It's just a small thing. You might have, it might be worth looking at insurance cover. Some of you may well have ticked an insurance box somewhere along the line. So just check that. It's worth contacting your insurance provider. In order to avail of the break in AIB, the numbers are there in the line. You can ring a dedicated phone line. You can speak to your relationship manager, of course, and you can also access the facility through the AIB website. And there's a call me back option there. I would say, and I noticed our CEO was on the papers at the weekend speaking to this, we've had to re-engineer our business over the past 3 weeks, 4 weeks to cope with this pandemic ourselves as a bank. There are currently 25,000 requests for this payment break. Normally we would be processing a few hundred new loan requests every week. So you can imagine the re-engineering that's had to happen with both personnel, and bearing in mind of the over 9,000 personnel in AIB, many 8,000 I think nearly are working from home. But there is a backlog. So there are two parts to the application process. One is the seeking the permission, and we've gone through those. Those 25,000 have all been approved, and then there's the fulfillment part, and that may be where there are delays. So apologies. I think it's quite an issue for all the banks, but you can imagine trying to get the paperwork catching up with the process. So if there are issues, please talk to us, contact our RMs. There might be issues with direct debits, so there might be needs to speak to some of your providers. Apologies, but we will do that, of course. And these are difficult times. Most of the requests are to do with the sectors that are very relevant in Kerry and in this region. So the sectors of hospitality, tourism, hotels, leisure, retail on the streets. You're the ones impacted. There's a disproportionate impact nearly in Kerry than there is around the country. I think the average in Kerry is significantly higher than the national average. So that pain, of course, another reason why we, as all bankers, are here to speak to you about it. So that's the payment break option. The next option there on the slide is working capital solutions. And these are, as you move through this period of closure or look to recover as the restrictions are lifted, hopefully our minds are beginning to, or will begin to think about how we open the doors and what we require and need. And therein maybe working capital solutions are required. So again, it's a conversation. Again, we will be talking to you about how has your business been impacted by COVID-19? How has it been impacted either in sales, increased costs, staff, supply chain issues, of course, is significant. And then what are you looking for? And talk to you. Is it an overdraft? Is it a business credit line, or what? What's relevant for you? If there's a regular engagement between you and the relationship manager that looks after you, we will have your accounts. We'll have a lot of information about you already. But in order to process something new, of course, the normal requirements are needed. So your audited accounts, your statement of affairs, and tax compliance. So these will be nothing untoward, nothing hard to source quickly. We're also deferring the current account fees that are currently owed in your account, and we're putting a moratorium in them and deferring them till later in the year as well. The Treasury solutions, just mentioning it briefly there, Treasury is something that's applicable particularly to businesses that are importing and exporting, and some that might apply to you, whether you have log jams there at the moment, but certainly there are solutions that we can look at, letters of credit or certain forms of guarantees. But there's also foreign exchange rate management that could go on. And remember, all the banks have experts there who talk to you about looking onwards and how maybe you should manage your exchange rate. So don't. The purpose of this conversation, and Tomás after me, is to say to you, look, this is a time of difficulty, but there are definitely supports available here. We're all in this together. It's important, vital for AIB that you, our customers, recover. So it's vital that we talk as to the solutions. And sitting on your own, you may not know the solutions, or certainly the stress of this might be impacting you. So please open the conversation and talk to your accountants, your bankers, or whoever your advisors are. And Treasury, as I say, is an option to think about there in currency. Merchant services, I just mentioned it there. Many of you may not be using any merchant services because your doors are closed. But you might have a fee issue arising, or you might have issues around accepting payments online. Please, in the case of AIB there's an email address to contact us. Then the second slide, the second of my 3 slides, I'm just speaking to the government-assisted solutions where all the banks are working on there. So there's 4 headings. The first one is the one that we're seeing most of, and it's the SBCI Working Capital Loan Scheme. SBCI stands for the Strategic Banking Corporation of Ireland, and that's been in place for a while, providing incentivised and assisted loans. The last one was for the Brexit over the last year or two. The Minister asked us to take a hybrid, effectively, of the Brexit loan scheme and make it into a COVID-19 loan scheme. So she's funded, Mr. Humphreys has funded, put more funding into this. I think they up to over 400 million as of last week, 450 million is to be topped up. What is it? It's a working capital loan. It's a working capital loan for a period of up to 3 years. It's ranges for figures from 25,000 to 1.5 million. It's unsecured, so it has the benefit of we don't have to tape it in or tack it into your current security, and it's cheaper than normal working capital facilities. It has a maximum rate of 4%, and your normal overdraft rates and that. And this is a loan, but effectively it goes into your working capital. That's the purpose of it. It cannot be used for refinancing of debt. It cannot be used for people in the agriculture sector or people that have had financial difficulties in the past. It can only be used for the trading sectors, if you like. So many of you will qualify. There are currently 1,400 applications in the system, so it is being used. It's only open since 3 weeks ago, and it is open for the rest of the year until the end of March next year. We have many of those applications in the system, so people are availing of them. So please talk to us. The incentives are the interest rate and the guaranteed security from the government, and you can stand alone from the rest of your stuff. So that's the process, of course, is, you go into the SBCI website, the sbci.gov.ie. I've been in there myself. It's easy enough. The criterion are, 1, your business must have been impacted by 50% drop, and 2, the innovation, there's an innovation box to be ticked, an innovation criteria box. You might say, oh, Gina, what's innovation? The government have relaxed the interpretation of that very easily. So it's broadened so that you will be able to tick it in most cases. And then the last thing is you have to write a business plan. And again, I wouldn't worry about that business plan. The business plan is a 1-pager. There are 10 headings. It's easy to guide through. And I think actually Tomás even has something that he might have mentioned there about a voucher that the local enterprise office are willing to pay for professional expertise if you need hand to write that business plan. But the 3 things are the turnover, the innovation criteria, and the business plan. Off you go into the SBCI, and they will issue you with an eligibility code. You take that eligibility code letter, which you'll get, and indeed I was talking to a client this morning who has just got one, and you take that eligibility code letter, you come to us, come to the bank, come to your relationship manager, and we take a copy of that, we take a copy of the business plan that you've issued, and you sign an application form, a loan application form, and we process the application for the loan. So, you may well be doing this in any event for working capital facilities with your bank. This is worth considering because there might be a couple of incentives with that. So that's the working capital loan. The SBCI have also backed what's called a future loan growth scheme and a credit guarantee scheme, which is the second box there. I haven't seen any of those in AIB being processed at the moment. They're mainly the first one, the working capital loan. The future loan growth scheme, we've done loads of those in the past. They are for general expansion. They're out for 8 to 10 years, and they're for general changes in your business, expansion of your business, into new markets or building something new or new machinery. Maybe not what's currently in the COVID-19, but it has been boxed under the COVID-19 as well. If somebody wants it, the same criterion apply and the same benefits are there. The export guarantee scheme is for smaller businesses, probably businesses starting out, but it's a guarantee that comes in on the back of existing facilities if you want to stretch them or to go interest only or whatever, and the banks might be struggling with that. The government are willing to give a guarantee to you to support. But again, I haven't seen many of those. So they're the SBCI, the first 2 boxes there. The third one is the Microfinance Ireland solution. And Microfinance Ireland, what they're providing is, as a government-funded initiative again, and it's to support small business through this period. It's designed for micro enterprises that are having financial difficulty, difficulty accessing bank finance, and they may be impacted by the COVID-19 and they have to be to qualify for it. But it's for business loans up to 50,000. A micro enterprise is an enterprise with less than 10 employees and turnover up to 2 million, should we say, turnover. The loan terms are for 3 years, and the interest rate, actually, the minister just announced a reduction in the interest rate down to 4%, 4.5% again this week, which is very good. So that's there, and AIB and all the banks again are providers of that, as well as going direct to the local enterprise office. And Enterprise Ireland in themselves, the last box, they've improved their funding this week as well, and they've announced a 180 million sustainable fund, and that fund can be parallel to bank funding, which is good, and you can get individual loans for companies up to 800,000. Some of you, this may be not relevant at all, but it's worth, these are the provision, the government services. I would say that things are changing all the time. So the government are being excellent, as we all know, they've been excellent throughout in the health crisis, and they've also been very forward thinking on the business side of things. Hence, I speak to the options that are there, but they are changing, and I am assuming there will be more as we move along here over the next few weeks. So they're the products, and I can take questions afterwards on those. The last slide I just want to mention is the cash flow management, and this is particularly relevant. I don't know if you know, I'm sure I've been talking, and we've all been talking to businesses over the last few weeks, and there's a lot of stress. Of course there's a lot of stress, and you might say, Jeannie, why do I want to do cash flow management? Sure, I have no income, I have no cash flow statement to prepare. What's the point? Cash flow, it's more than that. You're still going to have cash outgoings, cash needs. So I would say, please be doing a cash flow. No matter how small your business is, it's important that you're weekly managing out. Okay, there mightn't be much income coming in, but there will be. It's going to return. Depending on the sectors, it's going to return quicker or slower than others, but there's going to be cash flow coming through. There's going to be cash flow benefits, as I've just talked to you there, moratoriums and different solutions. But then there's going to be outgoings, and no matter what, you have to manage those outgoings. So I would say to you, we have a cash flow tool on our website. You can borrow it off, you can take it off the website, and it's a template to use, or your accountants, of course, and many of you may well be doing this already. Share it. It's an important tool to share with yourself, but also share it with your partners, ourselves, and your suppliers. Or, you know, just bring everybody into the conversation so it gets you into to that perspective. I would start with, in the first box there, the bank account. What's in your bank account? What's currently there? What are your current immediate needs? Payroll, PRSI, VAT. So, like, you start, and where is that? I'm sure this is where you're all at in any event. As I said, then prepare the cash flow statement. We have one on the site. Then moving into the third box, what can you manage? What can you manage that's coming in, and what can you manage that's going out? So in terms of the coming in, the debtors, do you discount your debtors? Do you incentivize them to pay you quicker so that you get more cash in? Or do you look at the costs and deferring payments? And many of the providers, the utilities, the councils, ourselves, everybody's looking at how do we help you defer payments. So discuss that one, and don't leave. I was talking to a very large client that we have yesterday, and one of their main suppliers had been providing them with a credit line, substantial credit line, since they started business 10 years ago. And because the ordering has stopped, the supplier continued to hit the direct debits for the credit line. And because the ordering has stopped, as I said, they were now reducing that credit line down substantially. So they were effectively taking from the cash of the account and reducing the credit line. So he contacted them. They've taken several $100,000, but they contacted them and they've stopped that. So they've managed that credit line. That's all stopped. The creditor has said, look, we're all going to be back to business again, so we need you. So of course we'll defer it. But there's things that slipped under the radar there in a large business. I'm just saying it to make sure that you have the conversation across the spectrum and be watching everything. Make sure that you look at your suppliers and have discussions with them. Look at your stock. There might be an auto-ordering, auto-renewal going on with your stock. That's not necessary for the current. And I say, look at the government schemes that we just announced or just mentioned there. There might be something of benefit to you. So look at fixed costs, variable costs, cash in, watch all that. The last thing I think is very important, your business connections. Not to ignore your business connections, to keep in touch with your business connections. You are often on your own in your business. I would say to you, you've been successful, you've been running your business well for many years, or you've been in the network, the chamber. We've just seen what the chamber are doing this morning. Keep in touch with the external side of things. Keep in touch with your accountant. Have the phone call. Have the conversation. Find out. Make sure you're informed as to what's going on. Talk to us. Speak to your problems to people that that have been in your network, your suppliers, your chamber, your local enterprise office. I would encourage you not to ignore the opportunities, the benefit of conversation, to make yourself aware so that you understand what's out there. So the last slide, and I'll hand over then to Tomás, is just the contacting piece. As I just said a minute ago, keep in touch, talk to us. And from a bank perspective, this mentioned there, request the payment break. There's the callback line. Talk to the local arm of the branch. So in terms of ourselves in AIB here, we've Joel Shannon and his team in the branch here. In terms of the business banking side, you hopefully have your relationship managers. Sean Healy has his business management team, and Margaret O'Connor has her business management team, who in AIB handle the full spectrum of the small to the large, in Margaret's case, for the customers that are out there. And please talk to us. One useful thing, and I've just mentioned it there, is sector-specific podcasts. So it goes back to my point earlier there, just about keeping informed, and I'm sure you do. But we have different specific sectors, and David McCarthy heads up our hotel sector. And David just brought out a podcast last week with the CEO of the Great National Hotels, David Byrne. And David Byrne, they've about 7 or 8 hotels, and David was speaking to how he is looking at the marketplace going forward for the next 12 months or so. Very interesting and positive insight into how he's preparing his business, which has been severely impacted going forward, how he's looking at the Irish business, the hotel business, or the wedding business, and the foreign tourist is gone, but how they're going to try to engineer back their business. So it's useful to listen to it. There's the details on the slide, which I hope you can see. Very well hosted by David McCarthy, who understands. We know David, who runs our Let's Talk Tourism conference here every year, sponsors it. So that's it, really. I'm going to hand it back to yourselves. I'd like to thank the Chamber. The Chamber is a magnificent voice. I'm very involved in the Chamber myself, and I would say this initiative and what's going to come over the next few weeks, please stay in touch with it, and we'll take questions later. Okay.
Unmuted.
I think Tomás is going to come on now. I don't know.
You can talk, Paul.
Tomás Hayes from a local enterprise office.
Okay, we should be handing over to Tomás now from the local enterprise office, who has a second presentation for us. And Diarmuid, hopefully, thanks very much for that. Hopefully you'll hang around to answer a few questions at the end of both of the presentations.
Yep.
Super.
I will, and we can have virtual coffee, Paul.
Okay.
Okay.
Virtual copies.
Very good. Very good. Good morning, everybody. Tomás Hayes here with the local enterprise.
Muted.
Certainly, I found that presentation, Diarmuid, very informative, particularly in relation to cash flow management and what people should be doing. I think the importance of having a network like the Chamber is so important as well. It's important to share issues. It's important to share problems. It's important to talk things over, and people get good advice within the network itself. Today, I'm going to talk about the local enterprise office. I suppose we're part of a network nationally of 31 local enterprise offices, and our primary role has been and continues to be working with the micro enterprise sector. As Diarmuid mentioned, these are businesses employing 10 or less. Again, they come all shapes and sizes, sectors, and so on. So if there's anybody listening to us this morning from outside the county, they might want to talk to their own local enterprise office, and certainly they'll be able to find it there through the website as put up. My own contact details and so on are there as well. In relation to the various supports that are out there, there are some very good guides in relation to supports. Again, they're on the localenterprise.ie Kerry site. There's a comprehensive list detailing all local enterprise office supports available to SMEs during the emergency. And again, that's available for download. I'm just going to touch on a couple of programs. Again, I suppose one part of what we do a lot of training programs for the microsector. Again, in terms of business startup programs, business growth. And again, I suppose the current changes is rather surreal. We're trying to pivot our own programs as online programs, short, snappy programs as well. And again, just to give an indication of some of the programs we're doing presently, again, looking at scenario planning around finances. Again, managing debtors and creditors sensibly, looking at funding options available to SMEs during the crisis itself. And again, people can go onto our website and they can book the programs as appropriate. Again, there's been a lot of talk about selling online, moving business online, and again, looking at the opportunity there. I think even the fact we're talking here this morning just looks at the technology perhaps that has been ignored over the last while, and I suppose we need to adapt and we need to change as we go forward. Other programs there, there's agile programs, there are lean programs in terms of improving I suppose, operations in terms of maintaining lean programs, cutting out waste within the business and looking at efficiencies and so on as well. So there's a whole range of programs available through the local enterprise office. This morning I want to concentrate on a couple of schemes. One scheme that is out there at the moment and is being advertised very strongly is what is known as the Business Continuity Voucher Scheme. Basically, it is where a business can avail of up to €2,500 in third-party consultancy costs. And again, it covers businesses across all sectors that employ up to 50 people. And I suppose the whole point of this scheme is, to assist businesses make informed decisions about the immediate measures and actions that they need to take. We're very busy with the scheme at present as of this morning. Again, it was only launched last week with something like 55 applications. And I suppose the scheme itself can cover various supports and skills that Diarmuid mentioned earlier, just looking at the finances, we'll say looking at business plan preparation, looking at things like remote working, looking at, I suppose, online trading and so on. There's, there is good, I suppose, variety in terms of what we're receiving from the businesses. Again, there's a whole range of sectors, everything from hairdressers right through to garages. It's interesting what we're actually getting in, but the voucher is open to all businesses, again, that employ up to 50 people. What I say to people when they're filling out the application form, and that is available on our website, localenterprise.ie, and it is a simple application form, is to be specific in terms of what you're looking for. There's no point in providing our office with a whole range of menus. If it's financial support, financial planning you require, you put that in the application form, and what happens at that stage? We phone you back with a conversation in relation to where you are at present, and where we can identify somebody to allocate to your business an expert, we will do so. As I say, we're working through the vouchers at the moment. Submit them by email to us and we'll take those forward. The next scheme I want to talk about is a trading online voucher scheme. This is a scheme we have been running for a number of years, but it is presently enhanced. And again, I suppose where there's up to €2,500 available in terms of e-commerce development, re-enhancing an existing site. I suppose one thing here is that the matching funding for this new trading online voucher has been reduced to 10%, which is quite significant. And people who have availed of the trading online voucher scheme in the past can make a second application under this scheme. What I say to people again is, make sure you know what you're doing here. I suppose looking at, the whole area of digital marketing, it's important that you do it right. It's important that you just don't complete a website and associated Facebook and so on and ignore it subsequently because it just makes your business look bad. So what we're doing here is that we're doing online webinars, and we're insisting that people participate on the online webinars before, they apply and they're approved for the voucher itself. It's just to ensure that people are getting value in terms of the scheme. Now, as I suppose what we're doing, we're inviting people to make contact with our office, and then we give them a link and they can apply for the voucher scheme itself. And we inform them when we're doing the webinar, and people come back and they list for that, and we follow through the process from there. Another scheme that has just come across our desk within the last few days, and it's an interesting one, I suppose, from the retail perspective. Again, it is looking at those larger businesses employing 10 or more employees before the 29th of February 2020. Again, it's a retail outlet. They have an existing online presence, but they're looking at gearing up what they have. There's a maximum grant available of 40,000. This is through Enterprise Ireland. It's like an enhanced trading online voucher scheme, but there's more funding in it. Again, maximum grant available 40,000, and it runs to 80% of the project costs with a minimum grant of 10,000. I suppose one thing that is even happening elsewhere this morning, there's another webinar just on this scheme. People should follow through. That webinar will be published on the Enterprise Ireland website. And again, looking at the contact details, people should contact retail@enterpriseireland.com. I think this is a very interesting scheme for the larger retailers, and certainly it's on a first come, first served basis. There's a finite sum available. And again, you can see the closing date. So I'd say to people, make queries as quickly as possible on this scheme. Diarmuid touched on the Microfinance Ireland loan scheme. Again, local enterprise offices have operated in partnership with Microfinance Ireland over the last number of years. in terms of processing loans. And again, I suppose this applies to individuals who might, or businesses who might have had difficulties, I suppose, in accessing finance through the mainstream banks. There might be a higher risk factor associated with it. But there's an enhanced Microfinance Ireland offering. Again, loans 5,000 to 50,000. Diarmuid has already covered this. I suppose what we do in this case is if a query is made in respect of Microfinance Ireland, we provide some support in the background, both in, I suppose, the initial assistance in putting together the application forms, assisting the client in making the application. The application is forwarded to Microfinance Ireland. There's a reduced interest rate if the application comes through the local enterprise office of 4.5%. And then the application is pushed on to Microfinance Ireland, who make the final decision on it. But I suppose in terms of just supporting the process, the local enterprise office would certainly be engaged in that. A number of other schemes, again, Diarmuid has covered these. I think Strategic Banking Corporation of Ireland is an important scheme. I suppose over the last number of weeks, a lot of my own conversations with businesses would have been around the whole area of cash flow, businesses kicking off again, how do they support that initial kick-off period if reserves have been used and so on. So, I think these schemes are important, particularly for the larger businesses. Maybe the microfinance scheme would be more appropriate for the smaller businesses. But again, engaging with Diarmuid and his colleagues in AIB and the other mainstream banks. Credit Guarantee Scheme, Diarmuid has covered this too. Enterprise Ireland Sustaining Enterprise Fund, again, repayable advance of up to 800,000, again, when the Strategic Banking Corporation of Ireland avenues have been exhausted. Diarmuid has been through this as well. I suppose in terms of guides, a lot of people have come back to me and said, we're totally confused. We're being bombarded left, right and centre in terms of the various supports that are out there. There is a very good publication there. It's on the Department of Business, Enterprise and Innovation website. Again, it runs through the various schemes, very informative. The present version's updated the 15th of April, so it's very strong and very current information. And I'd encourage people to go back. It's an easy to read guide. It explains the various schemes relatively simply, and again, provides the points of contact within the guide itself. I suppose we can't leave Killarney without talking about Tourism Fall to Ireland. Again, in terms of their website, there's some good information up there in terms of the webinars and so on. And again, people should follow through on that. But again, as I say, look, the big issues at the moment, obviously, is looking at access to credit as the businesses kick off again. I think, as Diarmuid has said, looking around, the chamber is really so important in terms of, that bit of support within the Killarney community and within the business community. Obviously, you have to do the obvious stuff in terms of talking to your suppliers, talking to your customers, talking to your accountant who knows the business, who should know the business better than most. And certainly, it's just to provide some assurance. Look, our office is open for business. We're talking to people on a continuous basis. We're very busy with the various schemes, the business continuity scheme and the trading online voucher scheme. And certainly, give us a call if there's anything we can do to help. So thank you all, and I wish you all well in the current crisis.
Okay, Tomás, thanks very much for that. That was very engaging and a lot of very, very good information there. So thanks very much. Appreciate that. I'm not sure if Niall is there, if we can see if there was any questions following on from the presentations. Can you hear us now?
Paul, yeah, Paul, there's a couple of questions just come in here. So the first question is for Tomás, would a hospitality business be considered retail? Are you there, Tomás?
Tomás, are you still with us?
Yeah, just 1 second there now. I'll mute Tomás. Sorry, Tomás. Can you hear me, Tomás?
Self-muted. He's self-muted.
No.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So the first question there, Tomás, is would a hospitality business be considered retail regarding the online scheme? So could someone that's in hospitality that's doing some retail apply for the online scheme?
I suppose from the trading online voucher scheme, the scheme we administer ourselves, yes. Again, that scheme is generally open to all businesses. There are some slight restrictions. For example, we wouldn't fund a website designer to develop their own website. But I suppose in terms of hospitality or retail, yeah, that scheme is open to those, to retail, definitely. In terms of the larger Enterprise Ireland scheme, it has just been launched as of this morning. So I'd say further investigation would be required around that. But for the trading online voucher scheme, yes, we'd be happy to talk to people.
Very good. So now there's another comment here from, hi there, Meg here from the Killarney Golf Club. The presentations are very good from Diarmuid and Tomás, and very detailed, heavy relation to products and services. And any chance of getting a summary of the main talking points afterwards? I think that will be possible. What's also important to note is that the full webinar is being recorded, so will be available to be shared with others who are not in attendance with us here this morning. Just there's a function for everybody that's attending to raise your hand. If you can see it, if you want to ask a question, please do so, and we'll patch you in to ask a question from either Tomás or Diarmuid. So, if anyone wants to come in, actually, there's a hand raised here. Kelly, you have a question. Are you there, Kelly? No.
She said.
Okay, sorry, no, there's another question just coming in here. So could the business continuity voucher go towards upskilling and education?
No, the business continuity voucher is to be used, we'll say, for third-party intervention in terms of, I suppose, we'll say looking towards the future within the business itself, and looking at a specific issue within the business itself. I suppose in terms of, we'll say, personal training, it can't be used for that. I would say to people, you know, to be worth maybe talking to the Education and Training Board just to see what would be available there. And again, I'm sure as part of the whole COVID-19 response, there would be supports probably available there, you know, through springboard programs and so on. So they might be worth investigating. But if the person wants to come back and have a conversation with me offline, I can certainly accommodate that. That's no problem.
Okay. I suppose I would have one question, Diarmuid, in relation to the SCBI, and you know, often when you talk in relation to going to a bank for working capital, it's not traditionally for the regular run-of-the-mill cash flow that businesses have. So, is the, you know, in a business calculating its cash flow need, especially, it's uncertain to when businesses may or may not reopen. So what is the best way for a business to deal with what they believe their needs to be? And is it a case of having an open and continuous conversation with the bank? You're muted there, Diarmuid, sorry. I'll unmute you. Perfect. Go ahead.
No, it's still muted.
Your own microphone, I think, is turned off. Perfect. On now.
I clicked the mute button. God, this technology. Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. I think when it comes to the banking side of things, you know, like Tomás was outlining the actual things that are available there, and And one might look at a banker and say, yeah, it's all very well and good to be saying this, that, and the other, but how does it really work? And that's really what you were saying, Niall. How does it really work? Like, we are in the moment finger in the air stuff when it comes to forecasting. We don't know. We're listening to the minister this morning when they're going to lift the restrictions. So what does that mean for your business? Like, what does that mean depending on the sector you're in? So if you're in a hotel, significant impact for the rest of the year, there's no doubt about it, particularly in Killarney. If you're in retail or if you're in manufacturing, various different ways. So I suppose in answering your question, I would say, I go back to that cash flow forecasting thing. It's vital that you're working to kind of, if you know your business well, which I assume one would, that you kind of do a good projection for the rest of the year. What's going to happen? How is that revenue side going to come back? Why? What are the assumptions underlying that revenue? And that's what we will be looking at. Like, we challenge the chat. We challenge the assumptions that you have. We look at them because obviously if we're lending the money, we must kind of go, right, yeah, we buy that turnover is going to go up 10% initially and maybe another 20% in June and maybe 30% in September based on whatever. We buy, we'll go to the conversation. You probably should have a good conversation with your accountant and you listen to all the air that's out there, the economics and that. And then that should become a numeric. Whatever the assumption is, a projected profit and loss, a projected impact on your balance sheet, what's that requirement then? It spills out of it. And you might say something and we'll look at that, but one way or another, what are your needs then? Is it payments of key suppliers, payment of staff that are critical, payment of bills, utility bills, fixed and variable costs? Like, these are all critical things. We're not going to let the business sink. We're going to be in the conversation, but we will have a challenging conversation because we have to understand that it will repay the debt. And then we quantify what it is. We determine the figure. Your accountant will come with a perspective of that, and you will yourself. And we agree that figure, and we put either an overdraft in place or some kind of a working capital loan, as I said in the presentation. This is after we give the payment breaks, because that's the first value. That's the first thing you should trigger. Like, that gives you immediate cash. So after you figure the payment breaks, and like Brian Hayes, the CEO of the Irish Banking Federation, mentioned yesterday that they've gone to the central bank, I think yesterday, to look at increasing the 3 months moratorium to 6 months moratoriums. So that dialogue, that conversation is now taking place, and how that filters through or comes out, we'll wait to see. But so there's a break's going to come. This is a different type of recession, Niall. It's not like what we had 10 years ago, even though a lot of people think, we're back here again. But it's a different. We were flying, everything was going well. So there's a different solution required now, which is, we've heard the government say it's more an impetus, or how do we keep the economy going? So we as a banks will be working with you in a similar light, and we will take your projections. Like, the sectors are so varied. You could see 18 months, 24 months before we see a full cycle back to what we were in some of the businesses, like in this town here. But I wouldn't get depressed about it, because it is going to return in different formats. And the question is to face this with positivity and face this with all the excellent expertise that we've all honed and developed. Like, we learned an awful lot over the last 10 years, all of us. So let's not abandon that. The government is very strong. The government finances are very strong. The banks are very strong. Their capital strength is all very strong. So you don't have what we faced into 10 years ago. So there's a lot of reasons to be positive. So I'm gone from micro now to answer your questions to macro. Apologies. Sorry.
No, that's kind of the light I was looking at. So we have a couple of more questions. So this one for you, Tomás. How would the voucher, I think the trading online voucher, cover online booking systems?
Yes, I think the whole point of the voucher is to encourage e-commerce, and I suppose anything that drives business to your website, anything that facilitates online payments, certainly that would be part of the voucher. Yeah. Like, brilliant. I suppose we're not interested in, or we cannot fund, we'll say, brochure websites. There has to be a degree of online commerce, because it enhances what a business is already doing, or even an existing website. So, for example, a business could have an existing brochure website, but they just want to take it a step further. Yes, that's where the voucher could kick in and support that process.
Very good. Diarmuid, I have two questions here. I'll put you together. One is, Where is the first point of contact for SCBI? Is it the bank or SCBI? And the second question on it is, the SCBI term of 3 years is quite short. Just inquiring, do you think that it would be extended, or what the options would be outside of that?
Okay. Right. So first of all, it's a working capital solution. So working capital is short term. There is long-term solutions in the SBCI as well. So that's what's called the Future Loan Growth Scheme. So if the term of 3 years, let's look at the purpose of what we want the money for. And if it's working capital, really working capital should be in the cycle. The term is extended because the economic recession that we're in at the moment has an extended period to it. So I suppose what we're all trying to say here is we're giving you the benefit of slowly returning to my last conversation there, the slow recovery, and hence the working capital, just extending it out a bit to give you a break. But if you require a longer term, maybe we look at the purpose and it's not working capital, it might be something else, and there is a longer term loan out to 10 years there for your need, right? If you need to have a long-term loan to cover off whatever the issue is here, that's of course that's available. That's a bank solution, and that's available. Let's look at what it is that your problem is, and let's resolve it. So that was, sorry, the SBCI. Yeah, so you go to SBCI first. It's sbci.gov.ie. So you said the criteria is that you have a decrease of 15% turnover, and you have to tick an innovation box. It's a criterion. There are a number of criterion, but the first one really to tick is the innovation one. That's expanded to include most of the businesses. So you can go back to what Tomás was talking about there. All the businesses will generally qualify. And whatever you need is now with regard to the COVID-19 problem. So anything that's here. So you will tick those boxes, and then you have to do a one-page business plan. All that into the SBCI. That gives out an eligibility code, and you come to us then. And then now we can be working in the background. So you can go to the both of them together. You know, we can start our process, open our application, get the information that we need in, the financial information in together. But look at. Don't sit. Ring us, contact us, come at it. You know, you can start both things running together.
That actually
if I could just come in on that, I suppose again, Diarmuid touched on something very important, and that is innovation. There has to be demonstration of innovation, we'll say, within that application to the Strategic Banking Corporation. It's important to tick that box, and you find something within your business that is innovative, and you present it within the application itself.
And I suppose that's actually part of the question I had here now, and maybe both of you. The person is, could they elaborate on what might come under innovation? What are the topics or things that would come under innovation?
Well, I would say from a general business process, I would say it's the way you do things within the business itself. It is not going out and reinventing a new product or service. It is innovation can carry through in terms of business processes, business structure. We'll say looking at introducing, I suppose, lean techniques within the business, new ways of doing things. You know, so innovation is interpreted across a whole range of areas within the business.
Okay, so just a bit more specific on that, Tomás, would probably be being here in Killarney around the tourism side, where the tourism businesses, you know, would there be, like I'm aware of, I've actually applied through my own business for the SCBI, and I think it's very, very general. It's not as specific, and there is certainly innovation that can be found in any business, but that's the question that I have here is, what would come under innovation, I suppose, from a tourism perspective?
Again, I would say in terms of like just looking at it, again, I suppose from the way people do their business, the way they sell their service, the way they sell their product, could be looking at new ways in terms of online sales, e-commerce. You know, there's a whole range of stuff that could fit into innovation there. So, like I suppose again within the business, I suppose anybody who has a business would be looking at these new ways of doing things. And again, it's presenting that in a way that would meet the requirements of the loan scheme itself.
Just on the site, Niall, there's a couple of scenarios that they gave that might be helpful. I can give them out if that suits you, you know.
That would be great.
Yeah, so this is on the SBCI side. So again, I would encourage you as Tomás has said. But like to give the example of a restaurant converts its business to be a fresh produce shop or other service in order to cope with the difficulties arising out of COVID. So additional working capital is required to cover the expenses such as wages and disruption of normal business activity there. So you can use using the loan to invest in producing, developing or implementing new or substantially improved methods of production there. So we know people are innovating in that way at the moment to try to survive. So they give the example of a haulier who finds a change in his client mix. So the haulier is now moving goods for a clothing manufacturer who's now making medical garments as a result of COVID-19 disruptions. This finds change in debtors, is impacting working capital requirements, and new arrangements are made. So that's innovation. That can be classed as innovation. A retailer or franchise sees an increase in demand as a result of COVID-19, increased working capital facilities required in order to manage increased demand of particular products, and the increasing staff costs due to taking on more staff. So again, the adapting of the shop layout and how it operates, that's innovation. So there's a number of examples there that I think, Tomás, from what I hear, they're being loose enough in the interpretation. See, the problem, lads, is the SBCI situation was coming out of the Brexit. That was a Brexit criterion. And SBCI were effectively using the SBI Brexit loan. They've converted it into a COVID-19 loan. They have to take the criteria to tick the boxes because it's compliance. So they've expanded that innovation one to be very loose. So any adaptation or change, as Tomás has said, or these scenarios, you'll get in there. So I would say, look, if you have a working capital need, you'll find the box to tick. So,
yeah, because I suppose, and the reason I'm raising that is because I have heard of one or two applicants who weren't able to access the loan on the basis of not ticking that box. So again, people have to be very practical. It's not just about new products, it's about the way business is done.
Yeah.
So I think it's a question for you, Diarmuid. My restaurant is closed. Are you still lending to the likes of me?
Yeah. Well, your restaurant is going to open, right? Unless it's a disaster, but I'm sure it's not. It's going to open. So, and when it opens, it's like my previous conversation. When it opens, how is the market going to be? I met a restaurateur there last week in the park, and he was saying to me, with social distancing rules that are going to be in place, I think he said that his max capacity would be 40. It's a restaurant in this town. And he's not so sure if that's break even or not. Well, that's what you have to do. Let's work out the assumptions, and then we back you. We support you. Of course, we'll lend. The answer is yes. If your restaurant is currently closed and you're looking for facilities for whatever reasons, talk to us. Just because you're closed today doesn't mean you're closed for good.
Okay. Just a comment from Ken Tobin, I suppose less of a question, more of a comment. Well done to all in this morning's webinar. Excellent to see everyone coming together and supporting businesses. Take care, Ken from the Killarney Chamber Alliance. SCBI is for registered companies and not for sole traders. So that's a comment that's just in here. Is that the case in this?
Yeah, I think. Sorry, Tomás. Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding is to be limited companies. I don't know, Diarmuid, I suppose. Yeah, maybe just.
I think that's where your solutions come in, Tomás. The Microfinance Ireland,
the smaller loan schemes. Yeah.
Smaller loan schemes are there for the partnerships, the sole traders. So I think generally limited companies, but most companies are limited. So if you're a sole trader or a partnership and you fall outside that loop, the SBCI is for limited companies. But
so the best case in that scenario for that type of lending, albeit it's up to 50,000, is Microfinance Ireland.
Yeah, or the banks. There's plenty of partnerships, sole traders. The professional practices are all sole traders, partnerships or whatever. So, please, we'd talk to you. Let's not dismiss that. So I don't know the particular circumstance. So you mightn't qualify for SBCI, but if you're an existing business, you're trading, you've been around for a good while, and you have an issue because of this, we're going to be able to find a solution for you, unless you're not a good business, unless there's something deeply wrong. Mm-hmm. Then there's an option there. It might be a 10 grand overdraft, a 10 grand loan, or a 20 grand loan. So we've been doing that all along. So that's I would, just because you don't qualify for a criteria, I wouldn't lose heart on that. It's just the government, as I said, and as Tomás was saying, there's changing going on here, but they're reacting to a storm. And in fairness to them, they came out with more changes last week. They added more money into both pots there in the SBCI. They reduced the interest rate on the Microsoft Ireland. They may well extend that criteria for the SBCI to be partnership, include sole traders partnerships. It's dynamic. It's changing all the time.
And I just an interesting point as well. And again, just to back up Diarmuid there, like we've had cases where we've brought people to the Microfinance Ireland structure or prepared them to put in the application to microfinance. But through that preparation and looking at the cash flows and maybe the business plan and so on, they've been able to go back to their own bank, back to the AIB, and the loan has been approved. So, like, there's a very practical thing here too. Like, you know, people just can't walk into a bank and say, look, where's the money? There has to be a bit of planning. There has to be cash flow. This cash flow is just so important. And the fact that there's a coherent plan in place for the business itself. And that is where something like the business continuity voucher can support, or even the preparatory work for microfinance. But talk to your bank, talk to your local bank. That's where the relationship is as well.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our questions, and I don't see anybody with their hand up. And I suppose, Paul, just to let you know, we've had over 84 people in and out of our webinar this morning. And this is available to be shared, and Kelly will be sharing the links with the Killarney Chamber members, and I'm sure it will go further afield than that. So I think it's been very successful, and I'll hand it over to you, Paul.
Thanks very much.
Could I just come in with
Sure.
Could I just come in with one comment here? Ken has been on from the Tralee Chamber. Certainly, we'd be happy to engage and do something similar there. You know, from the local enterprise office perspective, it's important to get the information out. So again, just take the opportunity to thank Paul and his team. I think it's been very informative and very good today.
Yeah, I endorse that totally. Well done, lads. Yeah.
So just to wrap up, thanks very much for joining us today. As Niall said, there was up to 84 people online with us at any one time. So this is all new to me. It's incredible software, and I'd just like to say thanks very much to Kerry County Council for allowing us to use it, and to my technical support here in the background, Brian Looney from Kerry County Council, but also Diarmuid and Tomás. The information and advice is fantastic. It's clearly a much better way to get it. I think because we've been bombarded with emails and all sorts of information coming at us from all angles. So this has been really engaging. I've learned something today. It's been fantastic. So thank you very much for that. Just to pick up on something that Tomás and both Diarmuid said, is that, you know, use your contacts. You know, Chamber are here. We may not have all the answers, but, you know, we'll certainly do our best to try and find them for you. So contact us through, you can contact Kelly at chamber@killarney.ie, and you can contact either myself or Niall. So, you know, like I say, if we don't have the answers, we'll certainly try and find them for you. We're back again next week at the same time, same channel, and we have Marketing Through a Crisis. So next Friday at 11. So for those of you that have an interest in marketing, the invites will be going out on Tuesday. So we look forward to you joining us again next week. In the meantime, we want to try and keep this thing going as well. So, you know, if members or people that are interested in joining the seminars, come back to us and let us know what your needs are, what your specific needs are. If you have suggestions of speakers that we should try and find, or if there's topics that you want covered, we'll try and find them for you. So come back to us and let us know. So once again, thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you all again next week at 11 a.m. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.